Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com. Today I'm going to walk you through the process to swap out the rear brakes on our 2012 Honda TRX420, otherwise known as the Honda Rancher. Now there are a couple other parts that I've decided to order to go along with this because I'm betting that they're probably going to need to be replaced as well. So let's step over to the table, look at those parts, and then we'll dive into this. All right, I went a little bit further than just ordering the brake shoe set for this particular unit. Typically, when I've taken apart other units that are this old, you're going to have seals and O-rings that have dry rotted, and they may have let water get in there, and dirt and debris can actually get inside this housing and prematurely wear out the pads. So I went ahead as a preemptive strike and ordered those ahead of time. So now that we've got our parts lined up, let's go lift up the unit, get that tire off, and I'll show you how to change them out. Let's go ahead and get this tire out of the way. All right, guys, these are just 17 millimeters, and I am using an impact wrench to pull these off. Now, I do want to advise that you not use it when it comes to tightening them back down, because chances are, as I'll show you later, it will not torque it as much as it should. All right, guys, with the tire out of the way, we just need to remove this cotter pin, get that castle nut, and then this entire hub will come off. At that point, we need to break these two pinch bolts loose, get that out of the way. Then we can get the outer housing, because the brake shoes we're after are up under this cover. And I know this looks like a lot to deal with, but it's really not that bad. We're just going to bite it off in chunks. Now, as you're doing this, if you're a little concerned when it comes time to put it back together, that's when you want to reference our exploded parts diagrams, because that's going to give you an exact picture how all this comes apart, and more importantly, how we're going to get it back together. All right, there's a couple of different ways to remove this castle nut. Now, if you've got air tools, that makes it really simple. But if you don't, you can use a pry bar inside the actual studs to hold it still. But when you do this, you have to be very careful not to damage the threads. So it's important that you wrap it with electrical tape or duct tape, or put some type of soft plastic or maybe even brass in there so you don't damage those threads. Now we're taking it off with the air, but when we go to put it back on, I have to torque it. So I will be using that technique to hold it still with the pry bar when we go to torque it. The castle nut is a 30 millimeter. All right, before we break this loose, I want to go ahead and mark it. That way I can get it back to the same torque, or close to it. Next, since I only have this one wrench, I'm going to have my assistant hold the rear brakes and see if we can get it to break loose. That wasn't bad at all. Tell you what, it's got a fair amount of dirt on there. I'm going to go ahead and spray some penetrating oil so it'll come off a little bit easier. There it goes. Really fine thread, so this takes a little while. Who needs CrossFit? Just work on four-wheelers. Now granted, this one came apart pretty easy. We had a mechanic at the dealership, Steve, Psycho Steve. He'd have a wrench this size on it, another one holding the inside, and then a 6-foot breaker bar trying to get these things to come apart. This one, thankfully, it wasn't rusted, but I've seen him put up a battle before. One down, one to go. There he goes. Yeah, if you're having to go through this much trouble to change out a set of brake pads, yeah, you go ahead and replace the seals while you're in here. All right, now it's got it. Fun stuff. Okay. To get this plate off, we basically have two 12mm bolts, one here, then one up a little bit forward of the axle itself. Go ahead and get this big flat washer out of the way. Yeah, that's one of the seals I was talking about. Now, what you're going to be after is just 6 8mm bolts. They're around the perimeter of the outer cover. Yeah, changing just regular old hydraulic brake pads is a lot easier than this, isn't it? This is where you typically find out if you've got water in there or not. It'll be blatantly obvious. Now you've got a couple of different pry points where you can get a screwdriver in here to pop the cover off. This one is still sealed up. That's one of the O-rings that we're going to be replacing though. Next we want to back off on our adjusters. You can tell that these were roughly half the way in, so I'm betting the pads are going to be halfway worn. But we want to go ahead and back them all the way off, because what will happen is the pads will actually start to wear a groove in this outer hub, which is what they're pushing against. And when they do that, there may be an inside edge on the hub itself, and then it won't want to pull past that until you release these all the way. Yeah, that's all the way back because I've got it pulled and there's still a gap on these two. So that is as far back as that actuator arm will go. Now, let's see if we can get that hub to release out of there. That's the only thing I'm a little bit concerned with, is I see a fair amount of rust up close to it. You can pry against this a little bit, but don't push hard because this is aluminum, and I've seen it so many times. Get in there and you try to pry it and end up breaking this back panel. Now mine's not that bad because it released pretty easy. And this will be one of the other seals that we're going to be replacing right there. Because if water gets past that outer one and then gets into here and then freezes this up, whew, you're in for a battle then. So that's why we're going to go ahead and replace them. This actually looks like it's practically brand new. It does not have an edge or anything. This one looks really good. It does. All the seals were in good shape, and honestly guys, on this unit I would have no problem, putting it back together with just the brake pads, but the amount of labor that it takes to get down to this, and given the age of the unit, I am going to go ahead and replace this seal, this outer one, and then the one on that cover as well, and this O-ring outside. That way I know it's still going to be sealed up another 2 or 3 years from now. But honestly, this one is a best case scenario. I've seen them look so bad where nothing would come apart, and we ended up unbolting the actual back of the housing and taking it off as an assembly because we could not get it to come apart. We couldn't get this part to come off of it. It was just, it was one solid chunk, an absolute mess. When water gets in there, oh, it's game over. And you won't know it until you start getting a really kind of vague brake pedal. That's because, water, it's going to make it slide, make it slip. What I'm doing now is just going through and cleaning all the surfaces, getting any dirt or dust that may have been on there, or just material from the brake pads themselves, getting that cleaned off. But when we put it back together, there's going to be a fresh coat of grease on all of this. So what we have next is just these 2 cotter pins, and then there's going to be a plate up under those. We'll lift the plate off, and then we can pull both of the brake pads off at the same time. Now, if you manage to lose or break one of yours, we do sell these as well. Just look at our exploded parts diagram. They'll be right there. All right, now, just a matter of lifting it over this edge and walking it out. Walking them out, rather. There we go. Piece of cake. All right, now we need to do a little bit of housekeeping. We're just going to use some brake cleaner, paper towels, and we're going to clean this out. When you're spraying this down, just make sure you don't spray up in here because there's actually a bearing back behind this seal. Now granted, it's probably a seal bearing, but I don't want to spray junk into something I'm trying to clean out. When you're doing this, make sure you've got glasses on. You don't want this in your eyes, trust me. And this doesn't need to be spotless. We just want to get the majority of the junk out of there. In particular, if yours are in bad shape, you want to make sure that these two pins are cleaned up well. And if they're a little bit rusted, you may want to break out some emery cloth and get them cleaned back up. Okay. All right, let's get this one pried out of there ever so carefully. Yeah. Yahtzee. Then we're going to wipe out that grease and then repack it a little bit. Yeah, that is a seal bearing behind there, but the grease you're looking at was actually packed into here. I don't know why this one had so much in there. Let's get that seal replaced. Go ahead and grease up this surface. This is my favorite grease. Yamaha race grease. Can't go wrong with this stuff. We just want to make sure it's around the inside right here. I'm sure they probably make a seal driver to do this, but I find it's always been easier just to use a soft blow hammer, like this little small one. Just tap it in. Just driving it in until it's flush. That should do it. Now, we can grease up this surface. You don't have to put a lot in here, and there's actually a little channel in the middle for the grease to go on these two pivot pins. They have to rotate or move back and forth on these pins, so it's important that it has some type of grease in here. But we are dealing with brakes, so we don't want the grease to get slung around and get where it's not supposed to be, which would be on the pads themselves or on the hub, because both of those surfaces need to be dry. Now let's go. See how strong my fingers are. This one. Gentle persuasion here. You have to hit it really hard, you're doing it wrong. There we go. Now let's go ahead and get this plate on. And then our two cotter pins. Okay, now we want to take a look at our brake drum surface. Let's get some grease back on our splines. And then also want to make sure we put it on this surface because that goes up inside that seal. Let's get that outer seal right there replaced. Yeah, that was still in good shape, but yours might not be, so you need to know how to replace it. Hub first. All right, now we can put on our seal. The best way to do that, use this outer washer. Just work it in. Go ahead and grease up this surface. While we're at it, we'll go ahead and replace this O-ring. Go ahead and grease up this surface. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough time getting that outer cover to go on. Plus, this helps keep out water as well. Now, the outer cover. Let's just get that seal pried out and get the new one popped in there. We're going to flip it over to use these 4 holes just to knock it out from the back. So we're going to give us a little gap here to knock it out. Yeah. Now, got our new one. Just going in like this. Yeah. I'm just tapping on the outside edge with a soft blow hammer just till it gets down to that edge. In fact, you can look on the back side and see how the edges are all down. So that's as far as she goes. All right, now we're going to pack this entire area with grease on the inside as well as this groove on the outside, because this will actually be going against that washer. That should do. This, we just want to put a really light layer just to the inside, because all it has to do is just get over that O-ring. We should be able to go ahead and go in place. Make sure she's lined up. There you go. Let's go ahead and get our 6 8mm bolts in. Make sure the washer is cleaned off. It is. And now, this washer, make sure the beveled edge toward the center is facing out. This is where it gets a little tricky, because you really need to have that 41mm tool if you're going to set the torque. Because the way this is supposed to be done, the inner bolt goes all the way in and gets torqued to 29 foot-pounds, and then your outer one goes to 94 against it. All right, so we're going to take this, just from experience, to 29 foot-pounds. I can tell you that's pretty much going to be it right there. Now let's get our pinch one in place. Putting a little grease around these threads just so they don't rust up. And once again, we're not using a torque wrench on this. Hopefully it'll feel about right, because it's going to be 94 foot-pounds. Hopefully those two will line back up and it'll make sense to my internal torque wrench. All right, holding it for 29 foot-pounds is one thing. Holding it still to bring that all the way up is going to be something else. And I bet you that's going to be right at the 100 foot-pound mark. So what we're going to do is use our breaker bar on the end of our hub to hold things still. But what I want to do is go ahead and either get a couple of pieces of plastic or rubber or electrical tape, something to keep this from damaging the threads. We're just going to use the nuts to protect it. We're going to end up right there. Now let's get some torque on that thing. If you don't trust your internal torque wrench, find that tool online and then set it appropriately. I think when those marks line up, it's going to be, yeah. That felt like every bit of 100 going in there, so glad I marked that. All right, now since we've already got this in position, let's get that castle nut torqued. Yep, this we're taking to 101, and that is a 30mm. And we're going to put a little bit more on it because we have to get our cotter pin in there. Oh, there it is. We've got one that lines up top, so we're good to go. I mean, if you can't get any of yours to line up like it did straight out of the box at torquing it, go ahead and give it another bump or two just to get around there. All right, before we forget, let's go ahead and get this plate back on there, and we'll adjust the brakes, and it'll just about be done. Once again, these are 12mm heads. Now let's go ahead and get our brakes adjusted. We'll bring in the main one first. And generally, I want to have maybe a 1/2 inch play at the brake lever itself. I mean, it's up to you how you want yours set, but I want mine pretty close. Give it a little bit of wiggle room, because if it's too tight and they start to drag, then the heat builds up and then they wear out, or worse than that, they could seize. That's where it engages, so we're gonna let's see what that equates to. A little bit more. That's probably fine, but this is just personal preference. Yeah, that'll work. Now the handbrake. Handbrake / parking brake as well. I think that'll probably do. Let's see what we got. Yeah. Works for me, and the parking brake engages. It's going to be important because we're about to put the tire back on. So we're going to leave the parking brake on. These little guys are 47 foot-pounds. Well, all right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. Well, listen, if you need any parts for your machine, why don't you come see us at Partzilla.com, and we can get you taken care of. If you have any questions or comments, why don't you leave those in the section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And hey, if you like what you see, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you can keep up with whatever I'm working on next. We just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at Partzilla, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.